You're watching.
Subscribe.
Hello, you're watching ScreenStalker. I'm Fakidor Laurie Blake. Make sure you give this channel a subscribe, press the thumbs up for the video, and leave a comment down below to answer our question of the day. What's your favourite entry in the Child's Play and Chucky series of movies? Because we've got a new entry out soon with MGM's remake of the 1988 horror classic brought to life with a new version of Chucky and a Mark Hamill voice to go with him. Now, opinions on the film will likely split the fan base, with some happy to see another Child's Play movie on the big screen, as this is the first one since 2004's Seed of Chucky to get a cinematic release after all, while there will be others who side with original creator Don Mancini, who only want to see his mainline continuity movies and upcoming TV show. Now, it should be noted that we are going to spoil all of the movies in the series, but not the remake because it's not out yet. So if you want to avoid spoilers for Child's Play 1 all the way through to Cult of Chucky, then you better make like a tree and get out of here. But what are those movies, and what even is a Child's Play and or a Chucky? Well, to learn about that, let's go right back to the start. Released in 1988, Child's Play sees criminal Charles Lee Ray, a combination of names from famous killers Charles Manson, Lee Harvey Oswald, and James Earl Ray, and played by the excellent Brad Dourif, escape capture from a cop by hiding in a toy store. Realizing he's about to die, Ray uses voodoo to transfer his soul into a good guy doll so that he can transfer it out again at a later date. Makes perfect sense. Meanwhile, a hard-working mother named Karen is looking to buy a good guy doll for her son Andy, which she buys off a shifty-looking guy in a back alley. The doll introduces itself as Chucky and wants to play. Things start to get suspicious, however, when Andy's babysitter Maggie is pushed out of a window. Andy tells the cops that he has nothing to do with Maggie's murder and that it was Chucky who pushed her out the window. Mancini's original draft of Child's Play was more ambiguous for longer as to whether Chucky is alive or whether Andy is a killer child, but the final product is more upfront about the fact that it's a killer doll. And through some exposition, we learn that Chucky's soul will be trapped inside the doll unless he transfers it into Andy's body, as he was the first person he revealed himself to. And Karen and police officer Mike discover the truth that Andy wasn't lying all along. It all leads to a dramatic climax where Mike shoots an already burnt to a crisp Chucky in the heart, killing him forever. Or does it? Because Child's Play did well enough at the box office that it got a sequel a couple of years later. 1990's Child's Play 2 sees the Play Pals company rebuild the Chucky doll from the first movie, which still has Charles Lee Ray's soul inside it. Now, back in the land of the living, Chucky tracks down Andy to complete the soul transaction, or he'll be stuck inside that doll forever. Now, Chucky poses as another good guy doll inside Andy's foster home, which is also the home of troubled teenager Kyle. Various kills later, and the film concludes with an epic showdown in the manufacturing warehouse for good guy dolls, and it sees Chucky lose his arm and replace it with a knife, lose his legs, and use a cart to move around, and eventually have his head exploded by a high-pressure hose. Now, Child's Play 2 made less than its predecessor, but enough to warrant a third movie with 1991's Child's Play 3. Taking place 8 years after the events of Child's Play 2, Andy, now 16 years old, has been sent to military camp after failing to cope with various foster homes and the murderous doll repeatedly trying to inhabit his body. Meanwhile, the Play Pals company has decided to reopen its doors since it's been a number of years since the Chucky incidents, and the PR disaster has since calmed down a bit. They rebuild the Good Guy Doll series, but accidentally get some of Charles Lee Ray's blood in the plastic mixture. Typical. Bringing Chucky back to life once again, which makes perfect sense when you think about it. After killing the CEO of Play Pals, Chucky discovers Andy's whereabouts and tracks him down to the military school. However, instead of revealing himself to Andy, he instead targets a young cadet named Tyler and intends to transfer his soul into him instead. Now there's the usual killing spree, and it leads to Andy and his new love interest, Kristen, tracking Chucky down to a carnival, which is where Andy and Chucky have their final showdown in the original trilogy, ending with Chucky falling into a giant fan, splitting him into 1,000,000 pieces. There's no coming back from that. There is. Now, Child's Play 3 was released only 9 months after Child's Play 2, and the box office pretty much reflected that. Not only that, but child's play was used as a scapegoat in some pretty horrific real-life crimes, with the media embellishing the role that the film actually played in these real-life tragedies. At the same time, the slasher genre in general was on a downward turn, and Child's Play 3 made the lowest amount of the whole series on the big screen. However, the slasher genre was revived by 1996's game-changing and pop culture-obsessed Scream from Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson, which meant Chucky would make his return to the silver screen in 1998 with Bride of Chucky, kind of tribute to the Universal monster movies of the 30s and 40s, and a post-modern slasher to fit in this post-Scream world of movies. As such, Bride of Chucky is a lot more self-aware than the previous, rather straightforward entries, and even has blatant references to other horror series like Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Hellraiser. Believing that the soul of Charles Lee Ray is still inside the various pieces of Chucky following the conclusion of Child's Play 3, Ray's former girlfriend Tiffany, who is played by Jennifer Tilly, and I only mention that as it will become important later on, stitches him back together and revives him with the same voodoo that Ray used back in 1988. She's successful, but a pissed off Chucky kills her in a bathtub and transfers her soul into another doll that Tiffany had lying about. He then reveals to Tiff that they can live again in the bodies of two teenagers, Jesse and Jade, but they need an amulet that is buried with Charles Lee Ray's corpse. This sets up a road trip with Jesse, Jade, Chucky, and Tiffany that climaxes in the cemetery where Charles Lee Ray is buried. But that is not before Chucky and Tiffany have a sex scene. Of course they do, they're dolls, it makes perfect sense. And again, this will be important again shortly. Realizing they shouldn't really be alive, Tiffany turns against Chucky and stabs him in the back, with Jesse shooting Chucky once again in the heart. But before she can die herself, Tiffany gives birth to another doll, which kills a policeman as the film ends. Bat crazy. And it's that doll that we would see return in 2004's bonkers comedy Seed of Chucky, where the offspring of Chucky and Tiffany, named Glenn, of course it's named Glenn, is being used as a ventriloquist's dummy. But he quickly figures out that he has famous parents when he sees his parents being used as props on the latest film in the Chucky franchise. Yes! We have a Chucky film inside a Chucky film. You gotta remember that Scream was a big hit in 1996 and every film was trying to be like it. Now, Glenn brings Chucky and Tiffany back to life and reveals himself as their child, but doesn't know if he's a boy or a girl. So doesn't know if he's Glenn or Glenda. A cheeky little reference to the Ed Wood film of the same name. Now, this new Chucky movie, the one that's in the movie, not Seed of Chucky itself, stars Jennifer Tilly. Now, I told you her name would be important, and Chucky and Tiffany make plans to transfer their souls into her and rapper Redman, who wants to cast Tilly in his directorial debut. Now, the idea also includes impregnating Tilly to put Glenn's soul into the new child, and because of voodoo magic, Tilly is pregnant very quickly and gives birth to twins. Now, by the end of the movie, however, Tilly, Tiffany, and Glenn team up to kill Chucky, but we find out before the credits roll that Tiffany was successful in transferring her soul into Jennifer Tilly's body. That is confusing. Aside from getting a note from Universal Pictures that Don Mancini's script was too gay, Seed of Chucky wasn't the hit that Bride of Chucky was, making only slightly more than Child's Play 3 did 13 years prior, and the franchise was then shelved until 2013, when Mancini would go back to the series horror roots with a direct-to-video follow-up, Curse of Chucky. And while Freddy, Jason, and Leatherface all got reboots ignoring previous franchise installments, Curse of Chucky was a direct sequel to all the other previous films. 25 years after the events of the first Child's Play, Chucky is delivered to the door of wheelchair-bound Nika, played by Brad Dourif's daughter Fiona Dourif, who promptly kills Nika's mother Sarah. Nika and her sister Barb try to deal with this grief, while Barb's daughter Alice grows rather attached to this new Chucky doll that was delivered to them. Later in the film, Chucky reveals to Nika that in his Charles Lee Ray days, he was a family friend and in love with her mother. In fact, Ray was with Sarah the night he was killed in the toy store in 1988, and is the reason Nika was born a paraplegic. Nika manages to avoid being killed by Chucky, but is found in her house with several dead bodies and a bloody knife, so gets arrested for the murders and sent to a mental asylum for her crimes after claiming that a doll murdered her family? Have they not seen the Child's Play film within the Child's Play film? They would know the answer. Chucky, who is now police evidence, is stolen by Tiffany, who is still inside Jennifer Tilly's body, and asks where Chucky is being sent next. We then see him seemingly successfully transfer his soul into the body of Alice. However, in an interesting post-credits sequence, we also see Chucky set his sights on another target, Andy Barclay from the first two movies, once again played by the now grown-up Alex Vincent. Andy, however, was ready for him and blows him away with a shotgun. Now, Curse of Chucky was a direct-to-video sequel, but was screened at Fright Fest in London as one of the opening films of the festival, and was successful enough to get Universal to greenlight the 7th movie in the series, Cult of Chucky. Released once again to home video in 2017, Cult of Chucky opens with Andy Barclay revealing he's living with a decapitated head of the Chucky doll that was sent to him in the post-credits sequence of Curse of Chucky. Somehow, Chucky is still alive, which becomes even weirder when another good guy doll is delivered to Nika at the mental asylum by Tiffany, who tells her that Alice is dead. Nika's doctor also has a good guy doll, and suddenly murders begin to happen. However, Cult of Chucky, unlike the previous entries in the series, plays with the audience expectations on which doll is really Chucky and which is just a normal good guy doll. Well, it shockingly turns out that they're both Chucky. Yep, Chucky has worked out a way to get his soul into multiple good guy dolls, which is a plot thread that was originally going to be part of Child's Play 2 before Mancini dropped it, and now Chucky has created a full-on cult of himself. Now, Andy tries to save the day, but Chucky successfully transfers his soul into Nika, who celebrates with Tiffany and a doll child in the backseat, which we can presume is Alice. Now, Andy is trapped in the asylum, and the bad guys ride off into the night, with the post-credits revealing that Andy put in a call to a friend before he left, Kyle, his troubled teen friend from Child's Play 2. So that's all the mainline Child's Play and Chucky movies explained. But what's your favourite film in the series? Let us know in the comments down below, and be sure to check out all the other great content on ScreenStalker by clicking the videos that are on screen right now. Subscribe to this channel and make sure you give us a thumbs up. I've been Fakidor Laurie Blake, and remember, we're watching.